Watching your heart reveals Ibn Arabi's method to know accepted worship in seconds. Yet most people miss the hidden shift inside prayer, where sincerity is tested beyond actions, and forms alone stay with this, and you will learn a rapid inner test for acceptance. Instantly within your daily prayers today, you think worship is measured by motion and words. But the real sign happens after you finish. A single inward change exposes everything. If you miss it, you miss the truth of your prayer. Now you step into the first sign Ibn Arabi placed inside the heart. 1. Qalb al-Murakabah. The watching heart. This is the heart that observes itself during worship. It does not chase emotion. It watches the state that follows prayer. In the teaching of Ibn Arabi, this is the first mirror where acceptance is seen without needing words or signs from outside. Inside this state, you feel quiet alertness after prayer. There is no rush to speak or prove anything. You sit with what remains in your chest. Either lightness appears or heaviness stays. That difference becomes the signal. People here are sincere seekers. They pray with care, but still question themselves. They want certainty, not guessing. They fear self-deception more than imperfection. The trap is subtle. You start judging every feeling as a verdict. You think sadness means rejection and joy means acceptance. This creates anxiety inside worship itself. The exit is simple awareness. You stop labeling feelings. You only observe the shift after worship without rushing to define it. 2. Naqlat al-Athar. The after effect shift. This is the immediate change that happens right after worship ends. It is not visible in the act itself. It appears in the next few seconds when your inner state either settles or resists stillness. From the inside, it feels like a turning of weight. Either your heart becomes softer or it tightens without reason. There is no thinking involved. It is pure reflection inside awareness. Those who live here are attentive worshipers. They notice small inner changes. They begin to understand that worship is not only action, but also residue. The trap is misreading emotion as certainty. You start assuming every calm moment means acceptance. You also fear every discomfort as rejection. This creates instability in your devotion. The exit is patience with the afterstate. You watch it without conclusion. You let the shift reveal itself over time instead of forcing meaning in seconds. 3. Sukun al-Qalb. The stillness signal. This is the moment when the heart becomes still after worship. Not empty, not numb, just steady. In the teaching of Ibn Arabi, this stillness is one of the clearest inner signs that something has been received, even if the mind cannot explain it. Inside this state, you feel no need to chase meaning. The chest feels settled. Breathing becomes quiet without effort. Thoughts still come, but they do not pull you away. People in this state are not always advanced. They are simply honest in attention. They notice when their inner world stops fighting itself after prayer. The trap is subtle comfort. You start assuming stillness always means acceptance. You begin to chase calm as proof. This turns worship into emotional addiction instead of sincerity. The exit is detachment from the need for calm. You pray for truth, not stillness becomes a sign, not a goal. 4. Imbisat. The expansion of the chest. This is when the heart opens after worship. It feels like space inside the chest has widened. Nothing external changes, but your inner world feels larger and lighter at the same time. From the inside, there is quiet joy without excitement. You feel present. You do not need to escape yourself. Even your problems feel less sharp for a moment. Those who live here are often consistent in worship. They have tasted sincerity before, even briefly. so they recognize expansion when it comes. The trap is emotional overconfidence. You start believing expansion means you are always accepted. You chase that feeling and lose focus on the one you are worshiping. The exit is humility inside expansion. You notice the openness, but you do not claim ownership of it. You let it pass through you without attachment. 5. Qabd, the contraction of the heart. This is the tightening that can appear after worship. The chest feels closed or heavy. Thoughts may become quiet, but the inner feeling is dense and unclear. Inside experience, it feels like distance, not from God in reality, but from your own sense of closeness. You may feel blocked or unsettled without knowing why. People here are often sincere but sensitive. They interpret contraction as failure. They think something went wrong in their worship. The trap is misunderstanding. You assume contraction means rejection. This creates fear after prayer and weakens consistency in worship. The exit is endurance without judgment. You continue your practice without chasing emotional confirmation. You learn that closeness is not measured by comfort alone. 6. Nur al Athar, the light of the aftermath. This is the subtle light that appears after worship ends. It is not physical. It is a clarity in perception. Things feel more aligned, even if nothing outside has. Inside this state, your thoughts become cleaner. You react less. You observe more. There is a soft awareness that lingers beyond the act of worship. Those who reach this stage are not always aware of it. They just notice they behave differently after prayer. Less haste. Less confusion. The trap is pride in clarity. You begin to think this light is your achievement. You forget it is a gift that can vanish without warning. The exit is gratitude without ownership. You receive the clarity and immediately return it to its source in humility. These states are not random feelings. They are inner signals. Ibn Arabi teaches that worship is not proven by what you do alone, but by what remains in you after you finish. But there is a deeper layer, a moment so fast it happens before you even think. That is where the real test begins, and most people miss it completely. 7. Tahqiq al-Atha, verifying the inner trace. This is the moment right after worship, when you check what remains inside you. Not with thinking, with awareness. In the teaching of Ibn Arabi, this is where truth becomes visible in seconds, before the mind builds stories. Inside this state, you do not analyze. You simply notice. Did your heart soften or tighten? Did you become more honest or more distracted? The answer is already there before you speak. People here are careful with their inner life. They begin to trust direct experience over long interpretation. They stop asking others for validation of their spiritual state. The trap is over-observation. You start scanning yourself after every prayer. This creates self-focus instead of God-focus. Worship becomes self-monitoring instead of presence. The exit is simple restraint. You observe briefly, then release. You do not stay in the mirror, you pass through it. 8. Fana al-Nafs, dissolution of self-claim. This is when the sense of I did this weakens after worship. The ego stops claiming ownership of the act. The heart feels that worship was given, not produced. Inside experience, there is relief. You stop replaying your performance. You do not argue with yourself about sincerity. The weight of self-evaluation drops. Those who live here are often steady in practice. They have seen both acceptance and dryness, so they no longer rely on personal feeling as proof. The trap is false humility. You start thinking you have reached purity. This subtle pride hides inside spiritual language and self-image. The exit is honesty. You admit you still fluctuate. You let worship stand without claiming it or rejecting it. 9. Shuhud al-Qabul, witnessing acceptance. This is the rare inner moment where acceptance is felt without certainty of form. It is not a voice. It is not a vision. It is a quiet recognition that something has been received. Inside this state, you feel light but grounded. You do not celebrate. You simply recognize a change in direction inside your heart. People here are not emotional. They are attentive. They have learned that acceptance does not always feel like joy. Sometimes it feels like silence. The trap is attachment to confirmation. You start chasing this state. You try to repeat it. This turns a gift into a demand. The exit is surrender to unpredictability. You accept that recognition cannot be controlled. 10. Haybat al-Qurb, awe of nearness. This is the feeling of nearness to the divine after worship, mixed with awe. It is not comfort. It is awareness of greatness alongside closeness. Inside experience, the heart becomes quiet and serious. You feel small but not rejected. You feel near but not equal. Balance appears between love and awe. Those who reach here are deeply reflective. They no longer rush worship. They carry awareness even outside prayer. The trap is imbalance. You may lean into fear or into comfort. Both distort the truth of nearness. The exit is balance. You hold both awe and love without letting one erase the other. 11. Athar al-Istiqama, the trace of steadiness. This is the consistency that appears in life after worship, not dramatic change. Subtle alignment. Decisions become cleaner. Reactions become slower. Inside this state, you notice your behavior shifting naturally. You do not force discipline. It appears as a result of inner clarity. People here are grounded. They may not feel intense spiritual highs, but their actions become stable and reliable. The trap is complacency. You think steadiness means arrival. You stop paying attention because life feels smoother. The exit is vigilance without stress. You continue observing your heart even when life feels stable. Now the system is complete enough for recognition. But recognition is not the same as embodiment. There is a deeper question left unanswered. What kind of human actually lives inside all these states without being lost in them? 12. The aspiration figure, the one who watches without attachment. This is the person Ibn Arabi points toward without naming directly. Their worship is simple, but their awareness is sharp. In the teaching of Ibn Arabi, this person does not chase states. They notice them and move on. Inside life, they pray without noise in the mind. After prayer, they do not rush to interpret what they feel. They watch their heart like a passing sky. Every state appears, then leaves without control. This person is calm, but not dull. They are sensitive, but not fragile. They live with awareness, but not obsession. Worship does not become emotional dependence for them. The trap they avoid is ownership of experience. They never say, I am accepted, or I am rejected from they refuse to turn signs into identity. What makes them rare is not intensity. It is balance. They stay close without claiming closeness. They stay humble without collapsing into doubt. 13. Diagnostic, where you are right now. You can locate yourself in seconds if you are honest. Not with ideas, with what you notice after prayer. Do you rush to analyze your feelings immediately after worship? Do you treat calm as proof and heaviness as failure? Do you keep checking your spiritual state like a score? Do you feel uneasy when nothing special happens? Do you repeat prayers hoping for a better inner result? Do you forget the prayer as soon as it ends? Do you rely on emotion to confirm sincerity? If you recognize yourself here, you are not far. You are just mixing signs. The heart is speaking, but the mind is interrupting too fast. The method is not to fix feelings. It is to slow your interpretation. 14. Practical entry point, the 3-second method. This is the method hidden inside Ibn Arabi's approach. It is not complicated. It is immediate awareness after worship. After every prayer, stay still for 3 seconds. Do not speak. Do not analyze. Just notice the first inner shift that appears. That is all. Second practice, name nothing. If you feel heaviness or lightness, do not label it as good or bad. Just register it and release it. Third practice, return your attention outward gently. Drink water. Walk. Continue life without carrying the inner state as identity. The goal is not to control what appears. The goal is to stop interfering with what appears. 15. Moral elevation. Worship beyond the self-worship was never meant to become self-observation. It was meant to refine attention. The heart that watches itself too much forgets what it is facing. When you step out of judgment, worship becomes lighter. You stop treating God as a result in your feelings. You begin to meet Him beyond emotional proof. The real shift is this. You are no longer asking, "Was I accepted?" You are learning to stand in sincerity without demanding immediate answers. This is where humility becomes real, not as emotion, but as quiet attention that does not need confirmation. And in that quiet, something stabilizes in you that no fluctuation can destroy. Watch your next prayer and notice what you do in the first 3 seconds after it ends. Be honest with yourself about what you usually chase in that moment. 16. The final shift when observation becomes presence. The last layer is simple, but hard to notice. You stop turning every prayer into a test. You stop watching the heart finally rests in what it is doing, not in what it thinks it should feel. In the teaching of Ibn Arabi, this is where knowledge turns into presence, not more awareness of states, less interference with them. Inside life, prayer becomes lighter. You finish and move on. You do not carry the moment like a report. You do not search for meaning in the trap before this stage is endless self-tracking. You turn spirituality into constant evaluation. Even silence becomes something you try to interpret. The exit is release. You let worship end when it ends. You trust that sincerity does not need constant checking to exist. There is a point where worship stops being about signs. It becomes about truthfulness in the moment itself. You are no longer asking for proof that you are close or distant. At that point, Ibn Arabi's teaching becomes clear in action. The heart is not a courtroom. It is a mirror that must not be held too tightly. If you grip it, it distorts. So you learn a quieter way to live. You act sincerely. You observe lightly. You stop turning every inner wave into a final answer about yourself. And slowly, something stabilizes underneath everything. Not emotion, not certainty, but steadiness that does not depend on what comes and goes. The real question is not what you felt after prayer. It is why you needed that feeling to define you at all.